I want to tell you today about a surprising thing that happened to me recently that caused me to change direction radically from what my original plans for 2025 was. And I'm going to do it by talking to you about the process I followed in getting to my word of the year. Now, it's important that you keep on listening right to the end of the episode so I can share with you my very unique word of the year for 2025. You're listening to Intentionality with Paul Kempff. All right, so let's start off by talking where I was towards the end of 2024. And I was contemplating letting go of a lot of good habits and routines that I have built up over the last 2 decades. Now, the first question is obviously, why would I want to do something like this? Why would I want to get rid of good habits? Routines that serve me. Why would I want to be less disciplined? So the thinking around this was really that a lot of the routines that I have been following for the last, call it 20 years, were designed to get to certain goals in my life, to achieve certain things in my life. And some of those things I have achieved. Some of those goals I have reached. And I started asking the question whether or not those habits and routines were still necessary. Were they still serving me? Did they still fulfill a purpose in my life? So the decision was to really analyze, to really interrogate every single habit, every single routine that I had in my life, and to start looking at which ones I could discard. So this evaluation, this reflection on my life, initially the idea was to get quite radical with the changes I wanted to make. Because I felt that this is the kind of thing you do at the end of a year, at the beginning of a new year. And that's when things got really surprising. I realized this is not as easy as I thought it was going to be. So initially, one or two of the habits that I wanted to get rid of was around all of these spreadsheets that I keep. A lot of my life is on a spreadsheet. I use spreadsheets to keep track of a lot of things in my life. One of them being my budget, the way myself and my wife spend money in our family. I've told you before, the habit I've got is every single morning I get up and one of the first things I do is I write down the expenses that I had the previous day. Now, it's not necessarily something that takes a long time. It's a few minutes in every single day. But the important component of that is once I've put all of those expenses into the spreadsheet, the balances in the spreadsheet has to match 100% to the last cent to the balances in our bank accounts. And there was a very specific purpose around this many, many years ago. But that purpose is gone. It's not necessary anymore. So what did I do in December this year? I stopped putting the expenses into a spreadsheet. It lasted all of 2 days. The problem with this was I soon started feeling very, very uncomfortable. Because you must remember, this is something I have been doing for the last 16 years, diligently, every single day. I mean, that spreadsheet is already sitting at 53,000 lines. So after 2 days of not putting those expenses into the spreadsheet, I just felt something was wrong in my life. Something wasn't working. And I realized getting rid of a routine or a habit that you've had for 16 years is not as easy as you think. And I started doing it again. And that's when I also realized that most of the things you do in your life, especially when there are good habits, especially when it is a good routine, plays a subtle but significant role in your life, in shaping who you are, and that everything is connected. I mean, it was one small little thing that I wanted to cut out of my life, that I wanted to discard, and it started messing with a lot of other things. It started messing with my whole routine. I started realizing that the way I do things is part of who I am as a person. I am a disciplined person. And I started feeling like less of a disciplined person when I started changing these routines. So guess what? I went back to the routines, I went back to the habits, I went back to the spreadsheets, and I decided in 2025, I am going to do things different, but I'm going to go the opposite way of what I initially thought I was going to do. I decided I'm going to intensify things. I'm going to take it intentionally to another level. Now, as always, especially in December, I spend a lot of time on research, on podcasts, YouTube videos, reading books, I was fortunate enough to have time for a holiday in December. And during this holiday, I managed to read 3 books. Now, important to understand that this is a time of relaxation, so I do read fiction books as well. But I also started reading a 4th book that I haven't finished yet, but I am busy with it. And this 4th book was full of valuable lessons that I had learned. And I want to share the name of this 4th book with you as the tip of the week for this episode. I started reading Diary of a CEO of Stephen Bartlett. And in this book, this very successful podcaster gives us 33 laws of business and life. Valuable lessons, valuable tips, well worth a read, and that's my tip of the week. Now, through this research, reading this book, seeing different things, hearing different things during my December holidays, I started realizing that this, taking it to a next level, intentionally taking things to a next level in my life is going to be very challenging. And I needed something that could help me stay on track. Now, usually it would be things like New Year's resolutions, goals, BAGs, things I've spoken about many times before in IWPK. But I found that there was one thing that I haven't spoken about in a while, one thing that could keep me focused on what it was that I wanted to achieve this year. And that was a word of the year. Now, this is something I've been doing for the last 10 years. Word of the year is something that I believe in. It's valuable in my life. And I really want to encourage all of you listening today to go out there and to find your word of the year. Now, the word of the year for me is all about reflection. It's about thinking of what you achieved last year. What was the good things that happened? What was your failures? What were the things that you wanted to repeat in 2025? What are the things that you would want to do differently in 2025?
I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, the FFG Group of Companies. Take another step into living a more intentional life by being more intentional with your finances and insurance. As a trusted provider of a wide range of financial services, the FFG Group offers innovative, tailored solutions that help companies and individuals thrive and flourish. They are an amazing company that I believe in because they embody intentionality in everything they do, and I'm proud to partner with them. FFG is an authorized financial services provider. Ready to take the next step? Click the link below and start making better, more intentional financial decisions, or visit their website. Remember, with FFG, you create the memories, we ensure the journey.
Now, this word of the year process starts off with reflection. Reflection on the previous year, 2024. What worked, what didn't work? What were your achievements? What were your failures? What do you want to repeat in 2025? What is it that you want to do differently in 2025? It's important to understand that when you think about a word of the year, this is not just about your goals, your targets, and your BAGs. It's also about your intentions for the year. Now, if we think about the difference between intentions and goals, your intentions are what you want to achieve and are influenced by your values. Your goals, on the other hand, are steps towards an achievement. Now, it's important when you think about all of these things and you try to get to a word of the year that you not just sit around and wait until one word gets to you, pops up in your head. I think it's important to go and write down a couple of words. Make a long list of words that could potentially be your word of the year. And don't rush it. Don't be too quick to get to your word of the year. I would suggest that you spend a few days on it. You sleep on it until you are exceptionally comfortable with the word that you have chosen for the word of the year. Because it's important to understand what happens when you choose a word of the year. It's something that will help you to focus your efforts, your energy, and your mind, and that has the potential to move you, to keep you going. It serves as a reminder when things are tough, and it helps you to get back on track. One of the other advantages of a word of the year for me is it's different from goals and resolutions. Goals and resolutions can very easily lead you to a feeling of failure. You know, you set a goal, by February you haven't achieved it, and you feel like a failure. A resolution is the same. I'm going to stop smoking, and by the end of November you've smoked again, and you feel like a failure. A word of the year is something that doesn't necessarily have a timeline to it or a specific target or goal. It's just something that you want to focus your efforts on for that year. That's why I like a word of the year. Now, I know it's already February. that doesn't mean you can't still get a word of the year if you don't have one. I really would encourage you, if you don't have a word of the year yet, to go and spend some time on it. Now, last thing that's important about a word of the year for me, I think it's something that needs to be visible to you as much as possible throughout the year. A fellow podcaster in his newsletter spoke about how he took this word of the year and he built it out of Lego blocks and put it somewhere where you could see it every day, be reminded of it every day. The way I do it is through Todoist. I already use Todoist for all my goals, my resolutions, my bucket list, and it's something that I can look at on a weekly basis. I add the word of the year to my Todoist lists as well, so it's something I can look at quite often. And that brings me to the end of this episode and to the promised word of the year. Now, very importantly, if we look at my word of the year for the last 3 years, very traditional, fits into this picture of how you get to a word of the year. 3 years ago, my word of the year was gorgeous. 2 years ago, my word of the year was flow. And last year, obviously, my word of the year was intentionality. This year, my word of the year is taet mtal. Now, I would be very surprised if anybody knows what that word means, because I cheated. It's not actually a word. It's actually an anagram. But I'm incredibly comfortable with this because I tried to find a single word that summarized what it is that I want to achieve this year. And I couldn't think of one. And that's when I came up with this idea of taet mtal. What that means is simply the following: taking absolutely everything that matters to another level. Taet mtal. That's my word of the year. Trying to intensify the discipline, the good habits, the routines, the things I do in my life, but importantly, the things that matter. I would like to encourage you not just to find a word of the year for yourself, but to also share that word of the year with me. Send me an email to paul@iwpk.co.za and tell me about your word of the year and why you chose it. Or engage on social media. I would be fascinated to hear what your word of the year is. So please share with me. And stay intentional.
Thanks for watching Intentionality with Paul Kempff. Subscribe, like, and click that bell to get notified when we release more episodes on how to live a life of intention and purpose.